questions. Gabe, start us off.
Yeah, Coach, if you could take us through Mississippi State and especially that explosive offense, especially Fitzgerald. And I'm curious, how much do you use a guy like Blumrick on scout in an opponent matchup like this?
Well, we try to, I think just about like everybody else, try to give the best picture that we can give offensively and defensively when, particularly in this type of situation. But that's tough to do with a guy like Nick Fitzgerald. So, but yeah, Blumrick's been involved in it. But they're extremely well coached, offensively, defensively, and special teams wise. They've blocked a lot of punts. Special teams wise, you got a great punter. Offensively, we've all talked about what they do and how they've been able to run the ball, and create explosive plays through that. And put pressure on you that way. He was 18 to 26 last week, so he's throwing it pretty good last week. Just in time for this week, which puts a whole nother problem out there. But they got an experienced offensive line, a big, athletic. They've always been that way, but this year they got. 60, almost 70 starts in that offensive line coming in, and then defensively, Todd Grantham is respected a defensive coordinator as there is in the country, putting them in position to do a lot of great things. So they're very well coached, they're big and athletic up front, always going to be. Have really, really good team speed and be physical. So it's a really a big challenge for us.
To the left, Cease, and then down front, Brent.
Kevin, your newcomers, particularly the freshmen, at what point as a unit do they no longer be considered newcomers? Has that already happened, or is that a gradual thing?
I think it's I don't think you lump everybody in that crew. Does that make sense? Because some guys have played more than others. Some guys have started from game one. Some guys have, like Derek Tucker didn't even play the first, 4 games coming back from injury. So it happens at different times for people. I think everybody wants to lump everybody in a group, but it's hard to do that just because of experience, number one. Some guys are playing special teams, and playing sparingly. But, at this point of the season, we're all just playing, and we've given plenty of opportunities to these guys, and they've taken advantage of it, and they've been put in some situations that have created some experience and some confidence in not only themselves but their teammates and their coaches to put them in those situations, like just like we were at Florida. So from that standpoint, the group has played a lot, but I think they've all progressed at different rates based on their playing time.
Down front, Brent, and then to the left, Chip.
Eric McCoy, his snapping seems more crisp, I guess you could say, than last year. Is that just sign of progress, experience, and also he's a fun guy for us to visit with. And would you say he's cerebral with kind of a mean streak? Would that be a good way to describe him?
Yeah, I would hope it got better. He's a sophomore now. It's hard. It's hard to snap the ball and block these guys in front of you as a young guy. And he's just getting better, just like anybody else. He's very smart. But he's a tough guy, and he's a pretty quiet guy. I think he thinks he's a comedian sometimes, but you look at the way he plays, consistently how he plays, and some of the things he's battled that with minor injuries and things like that he doesn't say a word about it, and you worry about it on Tuesday or Wednesday. And you look up and he's like, "Don't worry about it, Coach. I'm gonna be all right." And from that standpoint, you see his toughness. But for us getting targeted, for us and protections, for all the things that he has done, in a very short time as a young player has been very impressive. And he's only going to get better. And just like his snapping, some other things that he has done in recognition of defenses and from a leadership standpoint, because of the number of games that he has started, he's been very, very valuable to us and continues to be.
Go to the left, Chip, then Olin.
Kevin, will Donovan Wilson play Saturday?
No.
Second row, Olin.
Kevin, what about your team has impressed you most or impresses you most now?
Well, I said this summer that when you have 29 newcomers, and most of those guys, just about all of them but two, were here the first week in June, and the energy level in that room was different. And when you have that many new players, which is a third of your scholarship team, it can go one of two ways. But I think the education process of what we want to do, what we wanted to do this season, was be able to play more guys, and maybe reduce the snap number for some of the older guys, so that we can be stronger down the stretch. In order to do that, you have to embrace these young players, and with the 20-hour rule of being able to coach and develop guys in-house, our older players have to take some ownership in that and help them. And I think that's been a huge part of this team, because it didn't start off well, at UCLA, but how they've handled it, how the coaching staff has handled it. And you can coach a certain way, you can talk a lot, you can do a lot of mental things, but I think the leadership of our older players and creating an environment of, hey, we're all going to play, and it's in my best interest to help you. And instead of saying, oh, maybe he's taking some snaps away from me, it's I'm going to help you. And they're talking, and I see it on the sideline. I think the energy level on the sideline is different, because when if you're traveling with 65 guys and you're playing 58 of them, there's not a whole lot of guys over there just waving towels and not worried about getting in the game. Everybody's on edge. Everybody wants to know what's going on when they come off the field. We don't have a lot of just spectators on the sideline. Does that make sense? So, because of that, because guys understand that they might be in the next play instead of waiting for certain times, or if you get hurt, or maybe something's wrong. The rotation has been good, and I think the chemistry of this team is they're just a fun group to be around because of how they've handled adversity, and how they've practiced, and really just how they talk to each other. Because as I said before, there's a lot of things that are said about this program. There's a lot of talk out there, but what goes on in that building across the street is what's important, and they've handled that, I think, as good as they could.
To the left, Sam, then to the right, Ben.
Kevin, how is Keaton Sutherland doing after his
Where's it?
procedure?
Where you at?
I'm right here.
left.
Okay. You moved on me.
I've been here all season.
Okay.
Well, the times I've been here. How's Keaton Sutherland doing after his procedure?
Good. That was a tough deal to get a phone call at 12:30, and after he started with a stomach ache, and then we get him diagnosed, and that's something not to play around with. So I think he went into surgery about 1-something Friday morning, and then got out 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're leaving to go on the road the next day, and you're walking in and saying, hey, look, here's the start. You're going to start. We got to dress Kellen Deesh, and you're the backup now. Go get your knee braces, and all that other stuff had left before on the truck. So I thought in that situation, based on everything that happened, that Jim Turner did a great job. Our offensive staff and our guys handled it. But Keaton was running well yesterday, which I was shocked. And there's a pretty good chance he's going to be available to play this weekend. And you know, we'll make that decision probably Friday. But if not this weekend, certainly he'll be available the next week, which is amazing based on, you know, appendicitis attack.
And you mentioned a little bit about depth earlier. With that, the amount of guys you guys have played and with a change at the strength program, how do you feel your team is physically right now, maybe compared to where it has been when you guys have worn down in your
You know, I don't know. I think it's a combination of a couple things. You know, some people, you know, laughed at me when I said physical and mental health. I think we've done some things, you know, internally to address, you know, not just there's a lot of stress on these guys. You know, we got some of these young guys, like I said, we got a guy that never been on a plane before in his life. And he's already flown to California and flown to Florida 3 hours and then gone play in some pretty tough environments, you know, and expected to play at a high level. And you take that for granted, but that can wear on you too, particularly in situations you've never been in. And in environments that are pretty hostile and a lot of pressure. So there's a combination of things that we put in place, and so far it's working. And, you know, the bye week came, I think, at a good time for us. But, you know, we got another stretch here to go, and you know, I think what the staff has done and, you know, everybody in the organization has done has really simplified things and staying away from the big picture and being focused on really day to day, not week to week, but day to day on here's what you need to get done today. And don't worry about all this other stuff. Don't worry about these things. We're just trying to get better every day and then every week and then evaluate after that. So, you know, we'll see. Well, you know, it's just, this deal plays off on results, not on you know, speculation. But I can tell you we've done a lot of things different this year, and you know, I think our team's in a good place right now.
To the second row right, Ben. To the very back, Daryl.
Kevin, how would you judge this team's ability to handle success when it comes?
I don't know that we've been successful yet, so I don't know how to answer that. I mean, what you know, I know that we handled the first loss pretty well. So, you know, after that, you know, we're just midseason. So, you know, there's a lot of football to go.
To the very back, Daryl.
Coach, when you guys faced Alabama and Jalen Hurts, what did you learn from that encounter that may help you Saturday against Nick Fitzgerald?
I think all these guys are different. You know, everybody wants to lump, and it's funny to me when you're a running quarterback, or you know, everybody wants to lump guys into a deal. They're all different. They all have different personalities. You know, this guy's 6'5", a completely different player. And Jalen is an excellent football player, but you know, he's a power lifter and strong, lower body, breaks tackles. You know, and not to say that Fitzgerald's not, but you know, I've seen this guy run that people don't catch him. You know, he ran away from us the first play of the game last year. So, you know, you can't lump everybody into one thing. You know, drop back guy, running guy. They're all different personalities. Their schemes are, you know, although they're all tweaked a little bit differently. So, you know, for us, you know, we're defending Mississippi State and what they do, and there's not a lot of carryover. There's some, and just with every college football game about schemes, you know, in read and read option and all those types of schemes that you face, because just about everybody now runs some form of it at some time. So, you know, it's kind of hard to lump them all into one group.
Stay in the back, far left.
Coach, against Florida, your team had 5 sacks, and of course Fitzgerald, he's dual threat, really likes to run. Just kind of emphasize how pivotal it is for the defense to come up big once again. Sacks putting pressure on Fitzgerald.
Well, statistically, they're the least sacked team in the league, right? So, and we lead the league in sacks. So, it's going to be they are good at what they do, and so that's if you're not a big stat person, it's hard to ignore those 2 stats, this time of year. So, they're schematically what they do, they protect him. He's very mobile, and he's a bigger guy to get out of some things. So, there's some challenges for us, when it's not just him, but it's a scheme too, that have given them that opportunity to be the least sacked team in the league.
Down front left, Zach, and then right next to him, Travis.
Coach, how beneficial was the bye coming when it did, when you're about to face a team as physical up front on both sides as Mississippi State is?
It's a good time, but it's not like, we just went, Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, right? So, I think it's a combination of all those things. When the time that happened, that Florida game was a pretty physical game, and as physical as we've been in since I've been here. And so I think it's a combination of all the games, but for us, it came at a good time just because of travel and a lot of different things, midterms, things like that where guys can take a deep breath. And as I said, it's not just physical. There's, guys that these young guys, they get here, like as I said, that last week of May, I got 1 week off. We extend the period of 2-a-days, so they got a whole nother week of 2-a-days. And then, here we play on Thanksgiving. And so it's a grind for them, and the travel and the expectations and the pressure to perform in front of 100,000 and a couple million on television. Don't think that they don't recognize that. So, and every week it's a new experience. You're playing against a different team at a high level. And so, there's a combination of the physical part, but I think the mental part was good for us too because of class and tests and things like that are also a big part of the week. But based on our practice yesterday, I think our guys are ready to get back to playing some games.
Staying in the front left, Travis.
Coach, 2 questions. First, through the bye week and heading to next week, have you seen the offensive line be able to build some more continuity between those guys that are starting? And also, you mentioned players growing up, younger players growing up. Has that been the case at nickelback with Priest Willis seeing a little bit less time?
The first question, you felt better because we had solidified the offensive line until we had a appendicitis attack, which is, I'm not going to say what else can happen anymore. So you throw, I look out there and you got Carson Green out there, who's maybe 18 years old, and we got to go silent count in the swamp, so he's got there's no audible snap count, and he's got to block one of the better defensive ends in our league, and these guys held up. So I think some of the things that we did early that people question have really helped us. These guys have been in games and kind of understand, that hey, I'm going to play. I got to be ready to play. So, if we get Keaton back, you're probably a little bit more stable this weekend. But certainly the weekend after that, yeah. But playing, Dan Moore and Carson Green and some of those guys, last week when you win a game like that, there's some things that can happen to you physically during the game that you learn from. But certainly winning gives you some confidence. So that's that's where they are, and it gives your coaches some confidence to play it. What was the other one? Yeah, Antonio Howard. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, and lefty. You know, we've got some rotation right there because there's a lot of stress on that position, and guys, you know, usually they're covering a guy that's not only a good football player, but there's motion involved. There's blitzes involved, and the more guys that we can get to do that, you know, the better we are. I think you've seen a couple different people in there besides Priest, but also competition is a coach's best friend, and you know those guys are competing, and it's a healthy competition. I think that they've complemented each other. They've got different styles, obviously, but Priest has the ability to play corner for us too, which gives us some flexibility with some of our younger corners in case you know some things happen there, and you got to be ready to do that with the amount of man-to-man that we play. You know, you're chasing a guy at 30, 40 yards every snap if they're throwing it, and then we're asking you to blitz. So the more guys that we can play in that position, you know, obviously the more effective we can be.
Go to the right, Gabe, to the back, Daryl, and then Brent, you'll wrap us up.
Kevin, do you see a time where Alaka, Dotson, and Hines could be on the field at the same time, or is that too simple? Am I looking at it too simply?
I don't know. I would see a time. You mean a time this year? A time this week? What? I think it's. I don't think there's anything wrong with the rotation right now. So that's the key. I think it gets back to what I just talked about. We play all three of those guys every snap of the game, we're going to have some problems. Okay, so there's a method to. I think our linebackers have been as effective this year as they have been since I've been here, since maybe year one. And the reason being that we're able to get them off the field and get Anthony in there. Anthony makes some great plays, but then, you know, then he's young and he'll give some up, but then he'll get a sack or a tackle for a loss. And I think Alak is playing at a high level right now. Yeah, and are you better off? I think what your question is, you know, how much nickel are we playing? Some of these teams that we've played, for us, our nickel package has worked. I think the key too is Buddy Johnson has a tremendous future here. As a guy who is extremely athletic and 220 some pounds, and for those young guys, I mean they're playing. Those guys are all playing on just about all phases of special teams, Anthony and Buddy, which is keeping Terrell Dotson and Alaka maybe to one instead of like the years before playing 60-some snaps, and then you're playing special teams. You know, some of our core guys like Gilly are playing 30, 40 snaps, 35 snaps a game, and they're critical plays. They're the ball's changing, you know, field position 40 yards of play. So you can't rest guys like that, you know, and on those types of situations, you can lose you the game. So there's just a little bit more to all three of those guys on the field. I think the rotation piece has been good for the two starters. And I think it's given Anthony a chance to really kind of ease into things. And, you know, I think Buddy has had his role too at Sam. And so besides kickoff return, punt, you know, that's where those guys are, and they're making plays on all those phases. So, we want to get our best people on the field. But I think the rotation inside at Mike and Will with Anthony being able to get in there and move those guys back and forth, I think has really helped.
To the very back, Daryl, and then Brent, you'll wrap us up.
Coach, I have a one that may be really quick for you to answer, and then another question. Will Nick be a rah-rah guy this week, or will he have a helmet on his head?
What's that?
Will Nick
Nick
Starkle
Nick
be a
who?
rah-rah guy?
Oh,
You said that last week. There's a difference between a rah-rah guy and a guy who's actually going to get into play, so that's why I threw that in there. Well, is Nick going to be
he
able
had a
to be
helmet
your
on
backup?
his head last week, right?
Yeah, so I was going to ask you this week, is he going to be available to be a backup?
He'll have a helmet on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My other question is, traditionally, I think you guys are normally off on a Monday. You worked out yesterday. What was the thought process? Does that have a lot to do with the open week, or?
It had everything to do with the open week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Down front, Brent. Wrap us up.
Once again, an appropriate ender here. I've noticed over the years you've been a pretty big Astros fan, and it seems like it's more than just from having lived there for a few years. They're also a very young team still. Do you use any kind of examples on what they've done with your guys?
No, it's funny you bring that up. It was I was able to get to that game Saturday night, and you start looking at where they are and the young guys, and how they're playing. The energies in that building was ridiculous Saturday night. But no, I have not used that. I mean, I keep up with them, but they've done a heck of a job. And we got game one tonight, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's just from where they were a year ago. To this season and playing those guys, I think you see the energy level and how hard they play, and I'm rooting for them.
All right, Coach.
All right,
Thanks.
You bet.